once Descartes has gotten to the point in the argument where he has established the existence of a perfect and benevolent God who would not be a deceiver, then things open up, don't they? Things open up. It's almost as if by establishing to his lights the existence of such a God, Descartes has given himself the right. Sorry, I have to deal with cats here. Given himself the right to believe in the things that he wants to believe in. Not to say that he's perfect, and then that's one of the questions that he struggles with in these later meditations. He says, if I've established that God is perfect, and I've established that he has created me, why is it that I'm not perfect, or why is it that I make errors? Because he never says in the meditations that he's not liable to error. But that it is a problem, really, thinking about it. Now, he lays that, as a traditional Christian theology does, lays that at his own feet. That is, that we are responsible, that there's nothing wrong with us fundamentally, but that we misuse the faculties that we do. We oftentimes, as he says, because our will is larger than our intellect, we oftentimes make hasty judgments that we don't have proper evidence for, and that's how we fall into error. But so, keeping in mind that on any particular question we could be wrong, which is still sort of a semi-skeptical, you might say, point of view. He's not a radical skeptic. He does believe that there are some things that he can know about the external world. Of course, he has established that he can know himself and things like himself, because remember, he's a thinking thing. He's a mind, fundamentally, and we all are, according to the Cartesian way of looking at things. We can know ourselves in this sort of perfect way, and we can know things like ourselves, which are intellectual things, like in mathematics, or those aspects of science which are purely conceptual. We can certainly know them with a degree of clarity and vividness, and therefore certainty. We can know them in a way that we can never know physical objects, but we can know with some degree of assurance that physical objects exist. Why? Because we are very strongly disposed to believe such things. And here, maybe, thinking about this question in Descartes, it would be good to think about, maybe reread Russell's Appearance and Reality, and also More's, not Defense of Common Sense, his essay on what philosophy is, and his description of the common sense view of what things exist. To the latter, More, Descartes' relationship with More, I think that Descartes ends up with a worldview that's not too much different from More's common sense worldview, that there are material objects and that there are mental acts of consciousness. That there's these two fundamentally different sorts of things, and in fact, as a result of Descartes' meditations, this view of the world, that on the one hand there are physical things, and on the other hand there are mental things, and that these are two entirely different kinds of things, what came to be known as substances in philosophical vocabulary. This view that reality is composed of these two fundamentally different things has come down to us under the name of Cartesian, for Cartesius, the Latin version of Descartes, Cartesian dualism, which literally means Cartesian twoism. That is, that there are two fundamentally different sorts of things. Now, we can see that Descartes goes farther than More's common sense view, because he believes in the existence of God, which More says common sense doesn't rule out, but common sense does not claim to know that there is a God. There could be a God, but the existence of such a God is left open by the common sense view. We could also think about Descartes in relation to Russell, again, in this distinction between appearance and reality. If we had read on in that book, from which Appearance and Reality is the first chapter, it's called The Problems of Philosophy, Russell's position is not really that different from Descartes. Russell raises the initial problem. How do I know that a physical object exists if all I have access to through direct experience are my sense data? Russell believes that there are a lot of reasons to believe that our sense data are the result of our interactions with independent physical objects. He doesn't establish it. It's not something you could establish, really, philosophically, I don't think. But he does believe that there's all sorts of good reasons to believe that that is so. Not all that different from Descartes' position, right? Where he realizes that nature teaches him that certain sensations he has, especially the ones that seem to be produced by his own body, come to him from bodies themselves, that they are not these things that are simply created in his own mind. He doesn't establish that in any kind of direct way. Rather, he says that nature teaches it to him. He has a strong disposition, therefore, to believe it, and God is no deceiver. Russell never brings in that theological argument that Descartes depends upon. But he doesn't really come up with anything better. So I think it'd be interesting, once you finish the meditations, to think about the ultimate view that Descartes has of the universe and his reasons for believing that that view is ultimately sound, and comparing them not only to Russell and More, but also to Sextus Empiricus, who Descartes sounds a lot like Sextus Empiricus, but ends up not being a skeptic. It'd be interesting to think about why Sextus stays with skepticism and Descartes largely leaves it behind.